Kate crept slowly throughout the dense jungle, ignoring the occasional mosquito that tried to bite her, fully concentrating on the yipping sounds somewhere nearby. She couldn't see her prey yet. There were only a few larger trees around, the survivors of a violent storm a few years ago, but the growth was already thick. A lot of huge ferns and bushes and small trees trying to get their place in the sun, most of them taller than she was. Her husband had many faults, but at least he taught her how to move well in the wilderness. It was useful, almost necessary skill when one lived deep in the Norport swamps. There were always predators, large and small, and most of the other things that lived there were dangerous as well. She checked around in her pump-action rifle and the edge of the bayonet attached to it. She was close. It was time to take her revenge. She could smell them. That slightly pungent lizard smell she had come to hate so much. She moved slowly and cautiously, crouching behind a huge fern. She peered out. They were there, in a small clearing around a recently fallen huge palm tree, some yipping and growling at each other, some lying down and resting. The problem was, there were too many. She had expected a pack of maybe a dozen beasts, based on the tracks she had found near the farm. But she quickly counted at least 50 small striped raptors, from juveniles that still had most of their feeders and weighed maybe 40 pounds, to several large males that might have been close to her body size and weight. She clenched her teeth in frustration. She wanted to shoot at least a few of them. If there were a dozen of them, she would risk it. Her rifle held 8 rounds, and she had a revolver that was capable of taking down a striped raptor if she hit it well. And she was angry enough to risk a close encounter, bayonet against claws of those who wouldn't run. But that would be a suicide, and she wasn't blinded enough by her rage and thirst for revenge to attack such a large pack. She had to fall back and either retreat, or climb a suitable tree and try to reduce their numbers from safety. Stripes couldn't climb much, and she had enough ammunition in her bandolier. She took a cautious step, then another. One of the stripes suddenly made a loud hissing sound. She couldn't see what was happening, but the sounds of the resting dinosaur pack stopped. For a moment, there was a deadly silence in the jungle, but it was quickly replaced by a loud chorus of hissing. She got to her feet, turned, and ran to the nearest tree that was large enough to provide some safety. It was perhaps 50 paces away. She almost made it when, guided by instinct and the sounds behind her, she turned and slashed with her bayonet. It saved her life, because the adult strip would have torn her back to shreds if she had continued to run. The razor-sharp edge of the bayonet sliced through the raptor's front paws, and the pain stopped the animal from attacking her. She quickly took aim and shot it in the head at point-blank range. The lizard head with a feathered crown, the mark of a male, exploded, splattering her with its brains and blood. The body covered with green scales with a distinct strip pattern twitched and fell down. The loud sound of the shot made the other members of the pack freeze for a moment. The smaller packs of stripes she occasionally found near the farm usually ran after a gunshot, especially if one of them was hit. Kate pumped in another round and fired again, hitting another raptor. But the second shot was a mistake. It caused Pack to resume their attack. They were sure they'd be able to take her down with their numbers. She tried desperately to back away, swinging her bayoneted rifle, but the rest of the pack moved to attack her from the side. Another large male jumped at her, hissing, his feathered crown raised. She tried to dodge, but miscalculated. Her rifle saved her from the worst of the slashing attack with both front paws, but the dinosaur's attack was powerful enough to knock her rifle out of her hands. A follow-up slash tore through her bandolier, canvas jacket, and skin. She turned and ran again, desperation and survival instinct giving her strength and speed. Another raptor pounced on her back, tearing through a small pack and causing her to stumble. She almost fell and died, but regained her balance at the last moment and leapt into the air, her head crashing into the palm tree. It almost knocked her unconscious, but she managed to grab hold of the trunk. For a moment, she clung on for her life, trying to recover, but noises beneath her forced her to shake her head and start climbing up. She silently said a word of thanks to her damned husband. She hated it when he tried to train her, to force her to perform to his satisfaction. She never reached that level, but she learned to make her body do much more than she thought possible. She managed to jump high enough that the raptors couldn't catch her, instead crashing in the trunk below her or missing it completely. She stopped climbing for a moment and looked down. The angry pack was running around, hissing and yipping. Some tried to jump, but she was out of their reach, as long as she could hold on. The palm trees weren't exactly the best place to take refuge from a pack of angry predators. Holding a tree with one hand, she quickly took stock of what she had left. She still had a revolver, but had lost the bandolier that held the rifle ammunition and 2 speed loaders. The contents of her torn backpack were spilled under the tree. She also had slash wounds on her arms and back, but they didn't appear to be life-threatening. The wounds had already stopped bleeding. Kate took a deep breath. The adrenaline that had gotten her through the fight under the tree was already wearing off, and she was able to think. "Well, I got my revenge on at least some of you," she shouted. "How about we call it quits and you leave me alone?" The pack replied with a round of hisses and yipping. They were all circling around now, except for the 2 she had managed to kill. Her red hair was getting into her eyes for some reason. She brushed it away and realized that it really was a close call. She had her long hair pulled back into a ponytail, tied with a ribbon. A slash from the raptor's claw that hit her shoulders and backpack must have torn the ribbon as well. It made her irrationally angry. She carefully drew her revolver with her right hand and aimed down. She shot the largest strip she could see in the head. It was dead instantly, though it clawed at the ground for a while before it stopped moving. The rest of the pack attacked the palm in a frenzy. Kate waited until one of the raptors stopped for a moment and shot it, this time in the torso. It was a serious wound that would probably kill it in time. The 3rd shot missed. The 4th killed another raptor, and it finally got the pack to stop their pointless jumping, forcing them to back away from the tree. But they didn't run away as she'd hoped. Instead, they circled around, hissing and yipping, far enough away that she wasn't sure she could hit another one. She only had 2 bullets left, and a knife. That was definitely not enough for the remaining lizards. The gun was too far away. But she could see a box of rebel ammo that had fallen from her torn backpack just a few feet from the palm tree. She holstered her revolver and took a deep breath. Then she jumped down and landed on all 4s. Her joints protested, but she grabbed the box, put it in her mouth, bit down hard, turned, and ran back to her tree. She leapt into the air again, but one of the raptors was simply too fast. It managed to cut through her pants and calf and tried to drag her down. She screamed in pain, almost dropping the ammo box from her mouth. She kicked at the raptor, which made the pain in her torn leg even worse, but the beast let her go. She climbed higher, because the rest of the pack was already jumping again, trying to get to her. Her right calf hurt badly. She could feel the blood trickling down her boot. She hugged the palm with her thighs, holding on with just one hand. She used the other to squeeze her torn calf, hoping to stop the bleeding. She let out a muffled cry. The wounds were deep. The bleeding should stop after a while, hopefully before she lost too much blood. But her calf was ruined. No more jumping. Or running. Not even standing. Just holding on to the tree with one hand and one leg was exhausting. She carefully removed the box from her mouth, barely managing to slip it into her pants pocket. She held onto the tree for a moment.
"Well, I have a box of 50 rounds now," she hissed. "Let's see how you like it."
She shouted at a pack of the predators circling the tree. She pulled out her revolver and fired twice, missing both times but forcing the pack to retreat. She opened the revolver and shook out the spent cartridges. Reloading was complicated. She had to hold the gun between her teeth, rip open the paper box in her pocket, and carefully pull out one round at a time and load it into the cylinder. Then she had to wait until the pack dared to come closer. She managed to hit 2 stripes before she had to reload again, but in both cases the wounds were obviously minor, and only angered the beast.
"This is going to take forever,"
she muttered with the revolver in her mouth. Her foot slipped just as she pulled the box from her pocket to reach for another round. She tried to stop herself from falling with her injured leg, and screamed as she felt the flash of pain. She almost lost the revolver, but at the last moment she managed to grab it, and she held tightly to the tree. But to do so, she had to let go of the box that was half pulled out of her pocket, and the ammo spilled out under the tree. She had 4 rounds left in her revolver, and she was getting really tired. She felt like crying, or shouting, or screaming. This was not fair, but that was the life in the Norport swamps for you. Hardly fair, no matter how hard you tried.
I can't hold on much longer,
she whispered. 4 rounds, and a knife.
Well, I'll try to take as much of you with me as I can,
she promised with hatred in her voice. The pack was still cautiously creeping around, waiting for her to fall. Then she noticed something weird through the ferns and bushes. A head with a hat, moving unnaturally fast. Stripes noticed someone approaching as well, but they scattered in panic when the gunfire started. The man moved quickly through the bush, shooting with 2 huge revolvers. "Stay on the tree, lady," the man shouted, and disappeared. A moment later he appeared at the edge of the clearing. He was wearing a leather coat, not a typical garment for the usually hot jungle. Kate blinked. He had a wild mustache and a lazy grin on his face. A man with 2 guns in a leather coat. This was familiar. He was just standing there, waiting for the raptors to regroup and slowly approach him, hissing and yipping. Even if he had with every bullet, they would overpower him. And that was supposed to be her revenge. She began to climb down. When she was almost ready to drop down, she suddenly froze. She noticed a large dinosaur head sticking out of the bushes, quite close to her unexpected rescuer. Although it looked a bit like the stripped raptors, it was much bigger, and belonged to something much more dangerous. The only thing more deadly in Norport swamps was the giant Tyrannosaurus rex, the king of the lizards.
"Look out!"
she shouted. "A Regulus!" She jumped down, trying to land on one foot. Regulus, the prince of the dinosaurs, charged with a terrifying roar. The man began to shoot. Kate stumbled, trying to regain her balance before pulling out her gun, but she didn't fire. She just stared. The Regulus charged into the pack of raptors, tearing it down with its front paws, biting one of the adults in half and ripping the belly of another with a terrifying kick. And the man's shooting was unnaturally accurate. Each shot meant 1 less stripped raptor. The pack panicked and ran for it, followed by the roaring Regulus. The giant dinosaur had a saddle. She slowly approached the man. He grinned at her and began to reload his weapons. "Miss Kate Raffner, I presume. My name is—"
"I know who you are. Not many people ride dinosaurs. I have heard stories about you. They call you the Dinopet."
He frowned.
"I don't like that nickname. My name is Patrick Trellner."
"Well, Mr. Trellner, thank you for your help. What are you doing here?"
she asked, trying to keep the suspicion out of her voice. After all, he was a renowned bounty hunter. Maybe her then husband had managed to annoy someone with enough money. Or maybe this man was even after her, but she doubted it. She was too small a fish for someone like Dinopet.
"I saw your bounty at a training station, and I haven't been to this part of the swamps in a while, so I decided to take a look."
"I can't afford the fee you usually charge,"
she interrupted him angrily. It didn't make sense. She was offering a token amount for help with a huge pack of stripped velociraptors, all she could spare. It would be peanuts to this hunter. He just waved his hand.
"It doesn't matter. Me and Sandra, we have a thing for stripes. A pack this big is rare, so I decided to take a look. There was no one at the farm, but I followed the tracks and heard you shooting. Let me check your wounds, you see."
She took a step back. Fortunately, her leg held.
"There's no need," she said quickly. "They're just scratches."
He looked doubtful.
"They look like some deep scratches. You've got a lot of blood on you, Mrs. Raffner."
"It's Kate Sequoia, actually," she interrupted him again. "Miss Sequoia. We were never officially married."
"Well, Miss Sequoia—"
"Just call me Kate, will you?" She sighed and took a deep breath. I'm sorry. I'm angry and tired and sorry. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome. Ah, Sandra's on her way back. I better introduce you.
Regulus was scary, but Kate was glad the monster decided to come back. She really didn't want the bounty hunter looking at her scratched body. She had never seen this huge predator up close. Unlike the small velociraptors, it had almost no feathers, just a few on its neck and tail. The Regulus was clearly an old, scared killer. Some of the scars on its belly seemed huge, though obviously very old.
Sandra, this is Kate. She's a friend,
the dino rider said to his huge beast.
Don't worry, she'll just sniff you.
She was very worried about it. There were almost as many strange stories about this kind of dinosaur as she'd heard about a man standing next to her. They were supposed to have a very good sense of smell. It might be able to recognize what Kate was, and she had no idea what they thought of her kind. Sandra just sniffed her, looked into her eyes, and moved aside, licking blood from her teeth. Kate stopped staring and started picking up her spilled gear. If her husband was here, he'd scold her for forgetting. She did her best to walk without limping, but he noticed anyway.
Kate, your leg, it's not just a scratch.
I'll be fine,
she growled. And then her damn leg gave out on her. She would have fallen down if he hadn't jumped to her, almost unnaturally fast, and held her up. She stared into his eyes, defiant.
I'll be all right. Let me go.
The wound on your shoulder is almost healed, but your leg.
I have a little bit of were-blood in me, she interrupted angrily. Just a little, but that I heal quickly. I'll be fine. Let me go.
He obeyed and shrugged.
Well, as you wish. But you should sit down for a while. I'll get your things.
She hadn't noticed any visible reaction to her confession, but he was supposed to be some kind of monster too, though her husband claimed he wasn't a werebeast or any other kind of non-human he knew.
Why are you looking at me like that, Kate?
Patrick asked.
Waiting for a command about a monster.
He grinned and shrugged.
These are the swamps. Not a city where anything supernatural is forbidden. Normal humans don't survive here for long. Pretty much everyone here has a little something.
Yeah, and what's yours? I've heard many stories about you, that you were raised by a pack of dinosaurs.
He actually laughed.
Most of the stories I hear about me are stupid or annoying, but I actually like this one.
Others said you're a sauropod, a were-dinosaur.
He shrugged.
Others claim there are no such things.
There are a few sauros in the swamp, but they don't advertise themselves. I'm not one of them.
He picked up her rifle and handed it to her, then moved to pick up the things that had spilled out of her bag and put them in a canvas sack.
So what are you?
Kate asked.
They say you've been riding your Sandra out here in the swamps for as long as anyone can remember. One of the few people who's managed to tame a dinosaur and ride it. The only one who doesn't use magic or an artifact or something to control it. What is your little something?
They grinned.
I got my guns and Sandra. Kate, your leg is bleeding again. You should sit down and let me bandage it.
She looked down. The careless stab tore her muscles again. She sighed and sat down. Patrick took a bandage from his pocket, a modern and expensive sterile one made in the city, and knelt before her.
I'll do it myself,
she said, trying to take the bandage from him.
Let me take a look. I have a lot of experience with this. I don't have a boon of were-blood, so I have to take care of every scratch.
You think that's a boon?
She scoffed, but let him roll up what was left of her pant leg. He shrugged.
I think you'd be dead without it. The muscles are torn. Normally I'd say this needs at least some stitches, but...
Just bind it tight, I'll be fine.
Even a pure-blood werewolf like your husband needs time to heal when the muscles are torn so badly.
She frowned.
He knew.
I met him a few times, though only briefly. He has never tried to hide what he is. Where is he, by the way?
She was silent for a moment. Then she blurted out.
Dead. They got him last night. I buried him in the morning and went after them.
He hesitated for a moment and frowned before saying carefully, I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm not,
she shouted suddenly. Regulus nearby turned to her with a suspicion in her eyes. Kate ignored the beast and slowly got to her feet.
I'm not. He was a bad... He wasn't a very nice man. We were fighting all the time. I thought about running away from his stupid homestead in the middle of the damn jungle. I thought about killing him myself more than once. I'm not sorry. It wasn't a loss.
She leaned over the nearby body of a raptor, its head shattered by a high-caliber bullet. She kicked it angrily and looked Patrick in the eyes.
He was a bad man, but he was mine. They took him from me, and they're going to pay for it.
They nodded. Sandra made a weird growling sound. It sounded threatening. Kate froze and looked at the beast.
Don't worry, she approves.
What?
Her kind is much smarter than most people give them credit for. They're also as rare as it's for animals, weak empaths. She feels your anger and your fury, but she sees that it's the stripes you hate. She approves. She hates stripes. You have that in common.
What?
Most of the larger raptors and other dinosaurs hate stripes.
Why?
Because they often go after their eggs. A pack of this size is really quite rare. That's why I decided to come up and take a look. The bigger predators keep them at bay, usually.
But my damn husband had hunted or chased everything bigger away from our farm, from his little jungle kingdom.
That's one factor, he nodded. But they must have found a really good nesting place somewhere nearby. The rest of the pack ran off there. They usually do that when they encounter trouble. I'll get you back to your farm and I'll follow their tracks.
No, they're mine. If you go after them, I'm coming with you.
Sandra growled again. Her owner, or maybe partner, grinned.
Sandra likes you.
He turned to his beast and gave her a questioning look. Regulus growled again.
But your leg is still in a bad shape. She's willing to carry you, and like me, you won't weigh her down much.
Kate frowned.
What do you mean?
I don't ride Sandra much except in emergencies. Or when I need to make an impression. Her kind are ambush hunters. They can be blindingly fast, but they don't have much stamina for a long run.
Kate kicked the dead body of the raptor again.
You know, when I first arrived in Rockport, in the city, I saw the city ladies dragging the pygmy raptors on leashes. I had never seen a dinosaur before. They seemed dumb, cute until they started hissing and you could see their teeth, but cute. I hadn't thought about getting one for myself. I never had a pet. But I found out that the city life wasn't for me. I moved out here to the swamps, and I learned to hate those little bastards. They were always dangerous pests, hard to keep away from the farm. There were more and more of them.
She sighed and kicked the body one last time. He held out her hand. She hesitated for a moment, but then let him help her into the saddle.
Well, I am a dinosaur rider now,
Kate said after a few steps. It was strange. She had never ridden an animal before.
Not many people can say that,
Patrick stated with a grin. Sandra snorted. Patrick laughed.
What was that?
Kate asked. He hesitated before answering.
I'm not sure I can translate it.
Translate it?
We've been together for a long time, Sandra and me. It's hard to explain.
Well, try.
She made a joke, I think.
She frowned at him.
She can talk.
She understands speech well enough. Not the words, but she can usually grasp the meaning behind them. I told you they're empaths. It took me a while, but I learned to interpret what she's thinking.
So, what was the joke?
He hesitated again.
The closest I can think of is something like, no people, just those beasts. For her, people are those we meet in the settlements. She doesn't see them as something that should be in the swamps. I told you she likes you.
Kate was silent for a few minutes. He didn't seem to mind. They walked slowly through the bush, following the trail of the remnants of the pack.
Well, I guess I'm a beast, at least from the point of view of these normal people,
she said after a moment. He didn't react, so she added,
I have a bit more than a bit of rare blood. I'm not pure blood, but...
After a moment of silence, he just looked at her and shrugged.
There's a lot of half-breeds and crossbreeds in the swamps, Kate. Are you a city girl originally? Is that why you're so sensitive about it?
I'm used to hiding who I am. My mother taught me that she was a pureblood, but she couldn't find a compatible mate. In the end, she had me with a normal human.
He looked at her, but hadn't said anything.
What?
Kate, I don't know what you plan to do after we get the raptors. But if you decide to leave the farm, don't tell anyone who you are if you want to keep your heritage secret. Everyone in the swamp who knew your husband will expect that. Well, you don't just have the worst blood. Your soul has a lot of ferocity. You feel like one. Everyone will assume that you must be a pureblood as Refner's mate, though clearly not a typical wolf.
He assumed that, she said and sighed. He never asked. He thought I was full-blooded, just untrained, not connected to my inner beast. And I was stupid. I fell in love with him, and I didn't want to tell him that I wasn't. He thought I was a fox. Not a wolf, as I'd prefer, but close enough.
That's not surprising. You're small for a werbeast, slim, and you're redhead. Most wers tend to resemble their beasts in human form as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not a fox. Neither was my mother. I should have never told him the truth. That was when it started to get worse and worse. I was already his mate, and he couldn't just let me go, but suddenly felt that I was too inferior for him.
After a moment of silence, she felt irritated. She expected him to react, to speak.
Are you not going to ask what I am?
Why should I? He seemed confused by the question for a moment, then he quickly added, Sorry, I'm not much of, what's the word, conversationalist. I spend most of my time out in the wilderness with Sandra, and I know a little about wers. Even though animal spirits tend to run in families, it doesn't mean much what kind of spirit it is, except for the wers who are superstitious about it.
My mother was a squirrel.
That finally got a reaction out of him. He turned to look at her.
Well, I never met one. Never heard of one, to think. Look, Kate, you're obviously uncomfortable with this. You don't have to talk about it. I'm used to dealing with people who are different, and generally I just don't care.
All right. How about we talk about you instead?
There's not much to talk about. You said you found out that the city life is not for you. It's the same for me. It is like crowds, and I always had a little wanderlust in me, so I'm traveling through the swamps, doing odd jobs, or taking bounty to small settlements to get money for supplies. That's all.
Kate wanted to ask more questions, but he really wasn't a talkative type. They traveled through the jungle for some time before she finally asked,
What do you expect to find there, in that nest, if they have one?
Eggs and chicks. Most other species of raptors only have clutches once a year because they live in pairs or in very small packs. The stripes tend to form small colonies. A pack of this size should have several mothers who pop one egg after another. They take care of them and the hatched chicks, while the rest of the pack hunts and brings them food.
You know a lot about them.
One learns things when one spends as much time in the swamps as I do.
How long is that?
He looked up at her and grinned.
As long as anyone can remember, I've been told.
Sanders nodded.
Still playing the mysterious stranger card, Kate grumbled.
Honestly, I'm not sure myself, Kate. I don't even know what year it is. And no, I don't want to know. I don't care.
After a minute of silence, he added,
When I first came to the swamps, everyone told me how dangerous and ugly this place was, but I like it here. On my own, I might have moved somewhere else after a while, but I met Sandra. With her, I can explore places I wouldn't dare to go alone. There is still a lot of the continent to see. Maybe one day we'll get tired of traveling through the swamps and move to some other world. Maybe not.
Sandra made a weird snorting sound.
I know, Patrick said. You think they'll dare?
Sandra snorted again.
What's going on? Kate asked.
Get down from Sandra, please. Those raptors have figured out we're following, and they're circling around us, trying to ambush us.
Kate quickly got down from the predator, stepping carefully on her injured leg. It was better, but she still couldn't count on it. She checked her rifle. Patrick stared into the dense jungle, his hands on the butts of his revolvers, ready to draw.
I don't think they're going to attack us,
he said after a moment.
Too bad. There's still a lot of them, and I'd prefer to reduce their numbers before we get to their nest. Even with their current numbers, they won't dare attack a Regulus and 2 armed humans unless they're sure they have a chance.
So send Sandra away. Let them come,
Kate said angrily, feeling the adrenaline rush through her veins, triggered by her bloodlust. Patrick looked at her doubtfully.
That might make them attack, but it would be a little too risky for my taste.
You don't have to be afraid for me, she snapped. I can handle it. If the worst comes to the worst, I can always jump on a tree. I'm pretty good at that.
He gave her a wry grin.
Don't tell anyone, but in this situation I'm more afraid for my own skin. I suck at climbing, and I'd want to repeat the experience of getting slashed by raptor's claws. My coat can only protect me so much.
You didn't seem afraid when you found me.
That was a different situation, Kate. I was sure we could break them with Sandra, force them to run away from the prey. But now the Stripes know we're hunting them. They suspect, correctly, that we're going after their nest.
So what are we going to do?
We wait for a while. This is as good a place as any if they try to charge us.
After a while he shook his head.
I don't think they'll come. We should continue, but before we go, can I ask you something, Kate? Your husband, how did it happen?
For a moment she considered lying, coming up with some plausible story, but in the end she just told him what happened.
It was my fault. He got back from the station angry that I posted a notice about looking for help. We had a fight. He was drunk, very drunk. Furious that I'd ruined his reputation. A big hunter who can't keep the damn raptors off his farm, so his wife has to seek help. I told him I wouldn't do that if he did something about the damn pests. I kept nagging him about it, but he thought it was beneath him. In the end, he stormed out in the night screaming that he'll show me, show them, show everyone. But he was too drunk. He went out unarmed, and he couldn't change into the beast form unless it was near the full moon. When he didn't come back, I went looking for him in the morning. I found him near the farm. I guess they surprised him. Ganged up on him, a whole pack, tore him to pieces.
She was silent for a moment.
It was my fault, but the only thing I can do now is to get revenge for him.
Kate, it wasn't your fault. Don't blame yourself.
Just not him. He surprised her by grabbing her shoulders and shaking her little. It was easy for him. He wasn't as big as Rafnar, not as muscular, but he was still much taller than her, and had about twice her body mass.
Kate, listen to me, not your fault. It was his. He did something stupid and paid for it. That's the curse of wereblood. It gives you great physical abilities, but it also makes you impulsive. You get angry easily, and then you stop thinking and just go with your instincts. You rage, like you do now.
She looked at him. He was tall, obviously strong and capable, mysterious. She suddenly felt a surge of another emotion and realized that she was actually attracted to him. He let go of her abruptly.
So don't blame yourself. Let's get those raptors, shall we? I think we must be close. I guess it's that little hill over there. I see some rocks, so there's probably a cave or something.
All right, but I'm going to walk.
That would be best. They will try to attack us again sooner or later.
They moved silently through the jungle, but Kate just couldn't keep quiet, so she asked,
Why the name Sandra?
I dated a girl named Sandra a long time ago, on another world. She reminded me of her.
How did you two get together? Some of the stories I heard were pretty wild.
He grinned at her.
Promise to keep a secret. I like to keep those wild stories in circulation. It helps me to get the reward I ask for. Well, usually.
I promise.
Her nest was attacked by stripes, a big pack over a dozen. Sandra's kind, they live in pairs. They mate for life. They usually take turns guarding the nest, or one hunts and brings food for the other, but she had recently lost her mate. She had to hunt and leave the nest alone for a while. I found the stripes devouring the eggs in her nest and tried to stop them. Got bitten pretty badly for that. They would have killed me if Sandra hadn't come back.
That must have been embarrassing, finding you in her nest with broken eggs.
And the stripes, I always fought to protect her eggs. Stripes or other small raptors are no match for regulars. They simply attack and trample them to the ground. But in the nest it wasn't so easy. Those scars on her belly, they tore her up pretty bad. We both almost died. She let me stitch her up. All her eggs were broken, and she can't have any more. We ended up as friends. And hunting stripes is one of our pastimes.
Why were you trying to protect her eggs?
He shrugged. Seemed like the right thing to do.
He was still leaving something out, but she decided to let it go. For now. They followed the trail to a small pile of rocks in the jungle. Sandra suddenly hissed.
Get ready, Patrick ordered. They're going to.
The pack tried to attack them from both sides at once. Patrick started shooting and Sandra charged with a terrible roar. Kate managed to squeeze 2 shots out of her rifle. She wasn't sure if she hit anything. Patrick definitely did. He reloaded quickly and stared into the distance. They could hear Sandra's roars and the faint hissing of small raptors.
They're trying to lead her away from their nesting ground. Let's take a look while she chases them around.
They quickly found a hole between fallen rocks. Patrick ran his finger along one of them.
No moss. It hasn't been like this for long.
There was a small earthquake about 2 years ago.
That explains it. The fallen rock blocked the entrance so nothing bigger can get in.
Sandra came back, growling unhappily. She sniffed the hole and growled again.
Yeah, you have to stay outside, Sandra. Watch my back. It's going to be tight for me, but I'll be right back.
I'll go with you. I should probably go first. You'll have trouble squeezing in, but...
She expected an argument, but she said,
All right, ladies first. Check your gun. There will be chicks in there, and some moms. They'll try to stop us at any cost. Sandra will keep us covered.
So she went first with a flashlight in one hand and gun in the other. There wasn't enough room for the rifle, so she left it outside. The entrance was narrow, but behind it was a large cave. She waited for Patrick to squeeze through. He had a flashlight attached to his hat and both revolvers ready.
Where are they?
She whispered.
Close. They're ready to attack.
He aimed the revolvers in the darkness and waited. Kate could hear sudden growls and sounds of fighting from outside.
The males are trying to get in, Patrick snapped. Cover my back in case any of them gets past Sandra.
None of them did, and 3 females, smaller than Kate had expected, that tried to attack them were quickly dispatched by Patrick's revolvers. He reloaded and said,
There are a few more, so we have to be careful. Follow me.
They went deeper into the cave. The smell inside was nasty, and there were pieces of bones and remains of small animals everywhere. There was also an old broken skeleton of something much larger, probably a predator that once lived in the cave and couldn't escape after the rocks collapsed. Kate could hear a soft beeping noise. It didn't sound like raptors.
What's that sound?
She whispered.
Chicks, we're close.
Suddenly they were attacked by the remaining adult raptors. There were only 3 of them, but they attacked so quickly that Patrick only managed to hit one of them before they closed in. He swore and dodged a slashing attack from the vicious claws. He would have been hit by the second, but Kate was shooting as well. She missed twice, but the third bullet hit a snarling raptor in the shoulder. It was the biggest velociraptor she had ever seen, taller than she was, but the bullet hurt it and gave Patrick a chance to stick his right revolver in the raptor's mouth and fire twice, killing it instantly. The last raptor tried to attack Kate. She shot it with no visible effect. When it tried to bite her, she kicked its mouth away with enough force to stun it for a moment. She shot the raptor several times in the head and ran forward, looking for more targets.
Wait,
she heard Patrick yell. She froze when she realized that she was probably empty. But the remaining dinosaurs weren't a threat to her. The biggest one was about the size of a chicken. They were all covered in feathers and looked more like birds until the biggest one opened its mouth full of teeth and hissed. She kicked it away and growled. These were the last of the pack that had killed her mate. Her revenge was nearly complete. She stomped hard on the stunned chick. Others ran around making panic beeping noises, desperately trying to hide from Kate's fury. When nothing else moved in the cave, she stopped. She was breathing hard and still full of rage.
You killed them all. You can calm down now, Kate.
A quiet voice told her, and a strong hand squeezed her shoulder.
Calm down. You got your revenge.
She took a deep breath and used her flashlight to look around. There was a large pile of eggs in the corner of the cave.
I'm not done yet,
she growled and tried to move toward the eggs, but Patrick still held her shoulder.
No,
he said firmly. She turned him angrily. What?
Don't break them.
Why the hell not?
He hesitated.
I came for the eggs.
What are you going to do with them?
He shrugged.
I helped you. All I ask is that you let me sort through the eggs and take some.
Why?
I would like to make a small profit from this expedition, he smiled. I have a use for these eggs. You can break the rest if you still want to.
She closed her eyes for a moment and took several deep breaths. When she had calmed down enough, she told him,
All right. You can release me now.
He quickly went through the eggs, selecting 6 and carefully placing them in another canvas bag.
I'll take these. The rest are yours.
She frowned.
Tell me, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to let them hatch? I thought you and Sandra hated the stripes.
He clearly didn't want to tell her, so she pushed.
Come on, tell me. I promise I'll keep it a secret. What does the mysterious dino rider wants with those eggs?
Revenge. And money.
She stared at him until he reluctantly added,
These are all males, almost ready to hatch. When they do, I'll do something ugly to them.
Several ideas flashed through her mind, and she shuddered.
Maybe I don't want to know.
He grinned.
What's the worst revenge on an annoying predator you can think of?
She shrugged. He pointed at chicks she had stomped in a rage.
Don't they remind you of something?
She looked at the tiny bodies, at the blood-covered theaters, and shook her head.
When stripes hatch, their bodies are covered only with down, but they quickly grow feeders like this. As they grow older, they lose most of their feeders, but if you castrate the males when they're young, they don't grow much, and they keep their feeders. The stripes in those eggs will be fluffy, dumb, somewhat cute, kept on leashes, and tormented by stupid city ladies. And I'll get a lot of money for each and every one of them.
She had to laugh.
A mysterious gunslinger, an expensive bounty hunter, and a supplier of pets.
He grinned.
That's why I didn't want to tell you, see? I've lost most of my mysteriousness in your eyes, but please keep it to yourself. When I get suitable eggs, I let them hatch and sell them through a middleman. There are some breeders that try to compete with me, but they don't know my tricks, so mine fetch the highest price. But I don't want people to find out that I'm the one behind it.
My lips are sealed. Why only the males?
I never found a way to reliably block the growth of females. And most of these eggs are not developed enough for me to identify the sex. I don't want to babysit them out in the jungle for too long, so I only take those that are close to hatching.
She looked at him, trying to keep her emotions in check, just in case her suspicions were right.
Well, there's a farm nearby that I know of. You could leave the undeveloped eggs there and come back for them later. I'll take care of them if you tell me how.
That's an interesting offer.
I want a cut of the sale, though.
He smiled and took another canvas bag from the pocket of his coat.
Deal. Let's collect them. We can discuss your percentage later.
By the way, Patrick, how do you know which eggs are male and which are female?
He hesitated.
I just know.
So you have something else, she smirked. You're an empath. Maybe the Beastmaster variety. Am I right? That's why you can't stand crowds.
He shrugged.
Basically, that's another thing I hope you'll keep quiet about, Kate. I have to shut off my senses when I get too close to more people. But it's like walking around blindfolded, and I hate it. And do you know what people think about empaths? They think we can hear their thoughts.
Your secret is safe with me.
She looked at the chick's bodies and sighed. She was suddenly ashamed of her rage.
I got my revenge, but now I actually pity them when I think about it. They gave me back my freedom.
What do you mean?
Patrick, I think it was only a matter of time before I tried to kill my so-called husband. I tried to run away, but he wouldn't stop until he hunted me down. They actually gave me what I wanted. I know it sounds strange.
I understand. Probably better than anything. They gave me something I wanted to.
How?
Don't tell Sandra. I think she would forgive me now. She probably suspects it anyway, but the reason I was in her nest, I wanted to steal an egg, raise a regulus from a chick, train it, ride it. In the end I got it, though not in the way I expected.